Welcome to MSP Voice, a weekly show that brings you information from MSPs for MSPs. This is MSP Voice. Okay, welcome. This is MSP Voice, episode number 4. I am Doug Hazelman, your host for the show. And today, all the way from the UK, I'm excited to have with me Dean Lewis, who is one of the principal architects, team leaders for Chess ICT. In the UK, they're a UK-based VAR as well as managed service provider. I've known Dean for a while, back from some of the Veeam days, and so excited to have him on and talk to him a little about his business. So, Dean, give us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, so I work for a company called Chess ICT. We've got sites up and down the UK. We cover full managed services in terms of ICT. We also provide connectivity, cybersecurity, which I think we're probably going to touch on a little bit today as well. I personally look after day-to-day the professional service side of the business. So when you get an MSP or a VAR involved with purchasing projects or helping you out implement your own projects. So looking forward to this.
Okay, yeah. So, and I know you have quite a background in virtualization and security and those types of things as well. Is that kind of what led you into where you're at now, or what was kind of your career path?
Yeah, so I think a little bit like a lot of people start off as a customer, don't they? Working in a small IT office. I've personally worked in education, and I spent a couple of years working in education. Really enjoyed it. I really excelled myself. I learned a lot. I moved up the career ladder within education as well, and I really enjoyed making a difference to learners' outcomes and implementing new technologies that affected that. I really cared about that. And the crux point got to the time where I thought I need to move on. I need to do something different. And the obvious next step was to become a consultant of some sort. And working at an MSP to do that is great because you get the breadth of lots of different customers. Most MSPs always have a slant of a particular type of customer they work with, whether it be manufacturing, finance, retail, and so forth. But just the breadth of technology that you get to work with there still, the skills, the challenges. I think the main thing is the challenges, which is fantastic. So, I've enjoyed it for the last, I think coming up to be the 4th or 5th year working in this particular sector at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, I know, you talked about, you kind of, a lot of people start in the IT world and then they realize, hey, seems like they either branch out and do consulting, go into business for themselves, or go to a vendor.
Yeah.
It seems like the career path. Tell me a little bit about the kind of customers that Chess ICT services. It sounds like you have quite a wide range, or do you focus on a specific vertical?
No, so we do a lot in just terms of what we class as corporate businesses, private businesses. We do really well out of our Burnley office in manufacturing businesses, and I think that's to do with the makeup and the economic area in the north of England. As to why we do really well there. What's great for me is we have a really strong presence in education as well, up and down the country, and that's supporting education practices as well. So what was really great is even yesterday I went over to a new customer, hopefully going to be a new customer of ours going forward in the future. The reason why I was invited over is actually the new director over there invited us over after working with us at her previous place of work as well. So clearly we've done a really good job there. And for me personally, I cut my teeth in IT working in education as well. So it's something that resonates very well with me.
Okay, yeah, so you're familiar with some of the challenges and things that they have in securing their business, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, I think the biggest difference with education versus most private businesses is everyone needs to do more with less straight away. But definitely in the UK, the funding cycle that comes through the government is completely and wildly different to anything that you're going to get in a private business. You're paid on how many learners you bring through the door, how many learners you retain. So if you're going to be putting out an IT solution, if you need to step your game up against the next education establishment down the road, you need to make sure you differ yourself, but you need to offer that service as well, because if that student doesn't stay, that student is still a customer. They're not paying you directly, but they are paying you. So it's about keeping them happy. And at the end of the day, I guess for me, what was really different starting off in education is if the IT doesn't work, you're affecting the learner's outcome, and that's probably more valuable than them going into a corporate business, them not being able to run payroll at the end of the month, or not be able to invoice one of their customers for an extra 5 days. You can invoice a customer a couple of days down the road. You can recover some of them losses if your manufacturing plant goes down. But the detriment to maybe a learner's experience, is massive. For example, data loss. If you're working with universities, essays and so forth, if you lose that data because you're holding it for them, they may have spent hundreds of hours on that essay and you can't get it back. That is something that's never can be replaced, is that time.
Yeah, that's definitely it's a different impact, when you look at it monetary versus, education, because at the end of the day, that's what they're there for, is an education. And if there's a hindrance to that, then you're setting them back. So it's definitely a different view and a different look at it. So very interesting.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the kind of the MSP business, and from the UK perspective, I guess, because that's where you are. What are some of the challenges maybe that you think are specific to the UK, to where you're doing business, that others may not have in some other areas of the world?
So I guess it's more in depth for us versus people outside of the European, but obviously the big buzzword that's been going around the internet and LinkedIn and all the rest of it for the last couple of months is the GDPR. You guys sat in America, you're going to be affected by GDPR, but only for the data that you hold that's based for European citizens and so forth. Here in the UK, you're going to suffer a lot more for that, because there's a guarantee that all of your data is sat here as well. So a lot of customers bring their own challenges with that. For example, so I've been working with an aerospace company for the last couple of years. They have some government-based contracts, which mean obviously the data has to be in certain places to begin with, and then with the GDPR lumped on top of it as well, that just makes it all more critical for them to make sure they know where the data are, where it's placed, where it is. They also know how to identify a breach, and they also have a process in place for if they do suffer a breach, what do they do next? And GDPR for us in the UK, I guess, is a really, really big thing. We've seen a handful of very large UK-based companies suffer data loss. So one of the biggest ISPs over here, Talk Data, a couple of years ago, were breached. It was a very, very old breach through the website, an old vulnerability. They lost millions of customers' data from there. And the fines were hefty, but not massive. But then, months down the line transpired that Talk knew about it for quite a long time before they disclosed it and so forth. And those new regulations now are going to give companies 72 hours to disclose. And also as well, if a company is caught to try and push it under the carpet, or maybe not disclose it quickly, they then get penalised on top of losing people's data as well. So there's more of a consequence. But it only started to come into effect a month ago, so we haven't seen anyone be charged from it yet. We're going to wait to see what happens, but you can bet sure yourselves, even ourselves as an MSP, never mind our customers, we don't want to be the first people on that list. So I guess that's a challenge for us as well as an MSP, is the data we keep on a lot of customers. To service our customers, we have a lot of identifiable data for them, passwords, IP address ranges to connect to them, their orders that they've had off us in the past. We monitor their systems as well. We do trend analysis against some of their systems for performance monitoring. So some of that data, if it gets breached, it's not a major issue. It could possibly be used by somebody to understand that company a little bit more if they wanted to attack their IT systems, but maybe not the individual users. But it's still quite serious. It's something we need to think about.
Yeah, and so does Chess have a specific GDPR practice, or group of people that focus specifically on those types of issues for companies?
Yes, so we have our own compliance team internally that we work that worked internally to bring us up to standards. But those same compliance people are also more than happy to speak to our customers to go and help them advise on what we've had as a challenge. Because for quite a lot of our customers, we're either similar or slightly bigger than them, so we've suffered from the same challenges. And I guess that's one of the things that I think personally makes us stand out versus maybe some of the other MSPs out there in the business, that we're willing to do that. We're not just willing to kind of, look after your backups, monitor things, change your password, fix your broken laptop, for example, as well. We can go a little bit more in depth into that business process. And then from the other side of it as well, over a year ago now, we bought a dedicated cybersecurity business as well, because we knew the business that that's one of the things that's going to grow. It's one thing that's going to help us grow as a company to learn internally and protect ourselves, but also is something that a lot of our customers are going to ask for. I cannot tell you over the last 2 years how much time we have lost to crypto locker incidents, for example, being locked on our service desk. And typically what happens with that is, you know, you get great value for money out of us as a customer, I guess, because you've got, you know, a third line senior person working on the back end, bring your infrastructure up, make sure you're not further compromised, and, you know, make sure you're secured going forward. And then you've got maybe a first or second line person who's going through all of the backups, restoring data, getting in touch with your end users to make sure they can access that data again as well. So typically what happens all of a sudden is you have that massive hands-on deck situation when you do suffer a crypto locker attack, and you ring us as a support on that.
Yeah, it definitely something that's, you know, of interest, you know, to companies in the US, like you mentioned, because if you handle any customers that have people that are based in Europe or might have data that's in Europe, it affects you. So it's not just Europe that it affects, it really does affect the globe. You know, so it's, and you know, if you're not sure when it went into effect, it was the day that you got all of those privacy notices and all these updated terms and conditions. It was that week that just seemed like everyone was updating their privacy policies and terms and conditions and everything. It was just like one after another. So that was, you know, oh yeah, GDPR is in effect because I'm getting all this stuff from all these companies that I've signed up for.
And it's crazy because everyone's known about it for years, and obviously could have started this a couple of months ago even, but it was literally on the day, and then companies after that day. And what was really great for me, and probably you found that yourself, is there's a lot of companies where you just unsubscribe from them straight away and forgot that you've been subscribed to them. What was also interesting for me is I actually started having a few companies contact me that I didn't know who they were. And when I did a little bit of research on them, it turns out they were the third parties that your data sold into as well. So obviously that was a really great way to tell them to remove my data as well.
Got it. So let's move on to technology. Kind of thinking about technologies that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and you know what other MSPs might be working with. What are some of the technologies that you're most excited about moving forward?
So really interesting. We probably, you go to a lot of the events, and obviously the given thing nowadays is a lot of people have virtualized their environments and have moved on from there, and they're now going through this app cycle, and they're deploying hundreds of Kubernetes instances and so forth. And actually as an MSP, we don't see that on a day-to-day basis. What we see, pretty much most of our customers now have thankfully virtualized, but they're still kind of lagging behind in terms of that life cycle. They virtualize, but they don't know what's happening next. One of the things I'm really excited about is a lot of these smaller customers that need to have an agile platform as such, but not in the way that we see in a marketing term, is cloud services. So AWS, Azure, or even we've been working with a private cloud provider called Island as well. Because some of these companies don't even have a server room on site. So when you can sell them a virtual machine at $10 or less a month, and actually gives them the power that they need to run their business with, can be backed up, can be made highly available as well. You know, that's fantastic for them. And also I think over the last year as well, personally, I've seen a big shift to especially smaller customers wanting to go down the OpEx route for their services versus a CapEx. So they're actually now buying into that monthly spend. And I think when I moved to being a consultant about 4 years ago, Office 365 was really taking off at that point in time. I was lucky to work with a company that we were one of the biggest seat deployers for Microsoft in our area at the time as well. And that was really the big first product where customers went, yeah, I want to get rid of my email server because it's a pain in the backside. If my email goes down, it's the worst thing in the world for the business. You know, I can't live without it. So of course I'm going to pay £2.50 per user per month, get rid of that headache. And that was the very first service thing people cottoned on to moving into the cloud. And even today, I still have conversations with customers where they're a little bit unsure about moving the data into the cloud, but they're using all of the Microsoft Office 365 services.
Yeah.
And there is that little bit of a disconnect, but it's really, really key to bring that together and get them on board for it.
Yeah, so I agree. Cloud services, the proliferation in most of the MSPs that I've talked to, they're deploying Office 365, they're deploying Google G Suite. It just makes sense because, like you said, there's no infrastructure to maintain as long as you have access to it. So that's kind of what you're excited about or what you're looking forward to. What are you most worried about in terms of just technology? What keeps you up at night sometimes?
So the cybersecurity is a really, really big thing. And I think the problem with cybersecurity is, I was having this conversation with a customer the other day. I can patch all of the servers today. I can install the latest updates on the firewall. I can go around and lock all the doors, so to speak, in your environment. But there's two things that's still a risk. Tomorrow, there's going to be new exploits that come out, so it doesn't matter that you fully patched today. Tomorrow's a new day. The biggest problem is the person sat in the seat. It's your end user. It's that person who gets the email, types their details into the wrong web page, loses the password to the systems, and they may never notice they've done it, or they may notice they've done it and within half an hour it's still too late. We've seen that personally ourselves with customers. One of the things that we offer as an MSP as well is we do cyber awareness training for customers. We have a person who comes to site and will deliver it to all of your people and do a quiz at the end of that, or we can deliver it as an e-learning module as well, and we start to push that into colleges as well for their staff. We then can also do the simulated phishing attempts before and after that to show the effect. And again, that was something we did ourselves internally first because we knew it was going to be a risk. It was something we kind of caught on early. And don't get me wrong, we failed heavily the first time we did a phishing attack internally. The results were staggering, how many people have failed. But we then went through the process of training all the people in the business. We then did the second attempt and the third attempt, and then numbers came down each time. And we're seeing great success as well with customers in doing that same thing. At the end of the day, you're as weak as your weakest link when it comes to security, and unfortunately, I think that's probably always going to be the human element of the system.
Yeah, well, until AI removes it, right? But it was funny, you were talking about kind of the cybersecurity, and I was going to ask you if you provide any type of end user training for your customers, and you led right into it, because I know that's an offering I'm seeing a lot of MSPs start to offer is, okay, yeah, we can put this software in place that's going to protect you as good as we can, but at the end of the day, we really need to make sure that your people are aware of what these attacks look like, how to respond, and all these types of things. It's really, like you said, it's that end user training. So it's great that you guys saw that early and that you provide that to your customers.
Yeah, and let's be honest, as an MSP, some people are going to hate me to say this, but that dealing with those types of issues, especially the crypto locker instances and where people's Office 365 accounts have been hacked and they've been spamming out emails all over the place, it's time consuming on a service desk to look after that for customers. And it takes valuable time and value away from other customers as well. You will obviously, of course, do a great job for that customer and get it all cleared up, but there's been some damage that's been done there and then at that moment for them that you can't do anything about. And possibly as a company, whilst you're looking after that one customer, you're also then not doing a good job for another customer as well. So for everyone involved, it's better to obviously keep on top of these things, minimize that risk.
Great. So moving on, just kind of putting your managed services hat on, what's the best part about being in managed services? What do you enjoy the most?
So I think it's making the difference to the company and finding the small solutions for them. The pain points of day-to-day usage, getting on top of things. Sometimes, I guess probably my favorite thing is usually when we win a managed support contract off another company and then we get to take over it and we get to pick it apart and we get to fix all the things that they've done wrong. It makes our job so much easier when it's obvious as well. So, if it's a VMware environment, I may or may not be involved in it, probably because I work in virtualization more than anything else. So, if we get a 3 or 4 node cluster and iSCSI's been set up wrong and that's why the performance has been a bottleneck and the company hates it, we can just make them small configuration changes. It costs nothing to do that, and all of a sudden they've got a boost in performance. Things start working right. Things start to settle down. I guess that's my favourite thing personally. But yeah, it's them small things for customers. And there's a handful of customers for me that I go to what we call technical attendance, and I do strategic technical attendance for them. So they have us as a managed service desk. They phone us up for either, for full managed support, second line, third line, so forth, if they've already got IT services on site. And then I'll go in every couple of months and I'll look at what they're doing as a business, where, what their growth is, what their plans are as a business. And then I help them discover how IT fits into that, or remove the barriers of IT away from them as well. So I work with a food manufacturer. They're growing quite large. They work in the fresh pizza business. And I go there every quarter, and they call them Dean Days when I turn up. So after a while, when they admitted that's what they call them, it kind of made me smile a little bit, because it shows that they're paying for me to be there, and I'm working for them when I turn up, but they value that time quite a lot. And it was, they ask me questions about, like you've just asked, what's going on in the industry, what keeps you awake, what fascinates other customers. They'll tell me about all the plans to the business. So the other day they were telling me about how they're going to put a new production running soon. It's going to get in the way of the server room, so that's going to be a bit of a problem. But to see them grow as a company as well, to carry on going every couple of quarters, and see them getting bigger as a business, not shrinking, not struggling for money. I'm not turning up and all the suggestions that I made previously and saying, oh, we've not done that, so we've not got enough money. These guys are kind of forging forward, and it's still a struggle for them, but it's good to see them take it on board.
Yeah. So that's part of the best part. What about what's the worst part in terms of managed services for you? No names.
The worst part is definitely the customers. But I think personally, attitude goes a long way. And don't get me wrong, I've also been one of them people who will be on the phone to a call centre, really unhappy, screaming, kicking off, and all the rest of it. And I can have my bad days when I wake up in the morning. I don't really want to speak to anyone. But I guess some days, when a customer rings up and they've got a major problem, attitude can make a huge difference. Sometimes we can't fix it straight away for them. Sometimes we can pick it. I had a customer a couple of years ago. They lost their Exchange server. It wasn't in Office 365. And they had a major outage with that, and it took days to recover it because there are issues with their backup solution and so forth. And that customer was absolutely perfect on the phone. I was ringing them every couple of hours. I was talking through what was happening. Most of the time, we were just waiting for the backup to restore, and it was taking a very, very long time to come back off their old NAS box. And they just kind of like, okay, thanks for the update. We know you're doing your best with it. We know, you're trying your best. We know you can't do any more on it, and they've let me get on with it. I've been in other places where they've lost Exchange servers. I've been on the phone to them every 5 minutes, and it's a case of, what's it doing? Well, it's doing the ESE util. It's probably going to take 3 or 4 days to complete, because your mail data size is that big. And they're kicking off going, well, can't you make it any faster? And it's like, well, not really. You're kind of stuck. Oh, and by the way, you're still on Exchange 2003, which went end of life years ago.
It's everybody. People don't have a concept of how things work, and sometimes, and it gets frustrating. Either as the person who's trying to support them, or as a person who doesn't understand, why is this process so difficult? Why is it taking so long? Why can't it be faster? I don't feel like you're communicating to me, even though there's nothing to communicate, because you're waiting for something to finish. So I could definitely see that frustration. So, okay, well, we are now to the rapid fire round.
Okay.
This is a somewhat special UK edition. So pretty simple. I ask a question, you give me an answer, and then I move on to the next question. We've got 6 questions today. All right.
Okay.
So first up, Apple or Android?
Apple.
Okay. Mac, Linux, or Windows?
Mac.
Okay. Amazon or Azure, or something else?
Azure.
Okay. Local backups or cloud, or both?
Both.
Okay. Which is worse, printer support or vendor cold calls?
Ooh, vendor cold calls.
Okay. And for the UK question, Marmite, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's been explained to me in the past that Marmite it's a yes or no question. There's no in between. You either love it or you hate it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a really weird flavour, and that's it. Everyone's taste buds are different. I think a lot of people come to the UK and it's the first thing they try as well. They sell it in the airport in the UK for that reason.
Yeah, well, someone had described another person as, oh, he's Marmite. I'm like, what does that mean? It's like people either love him or hate him. There's no in between.
Yep.
So, okay, and if you don't know what Marmite is, Google it. It's an interesting food substance. So,
Yeah, it's definitely worth a try, especially if you visit in the UK.
yes. All right. So, anything else before we wrap things up here? Any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to let us know?
So I think the biggest thing nowadays for companies, you mentioned again some of the frustrations with certain customers or problems that we see out there. Customers not willing to update their infrastructure is a big thing, and especially now things are changing so very fast. You've got Windows 10 that's come out. There's not going to be another version of Windows 10. It's just going to be the updated version constantly going. Same with 2016 possibly, or they brought the 2019 preview edition now as well. So maybe that'll be the last one. And the reasons why that is very, very key is because if you're still sat on Server 2003, especially with some of your very old applications, you're going to find that even Sage aren't going to support your older version of Sage to migrate from. If you need to move Sage Cloud or move your file services or whatever it may be into Azure or AWS, it's going to get very, very hard because then pathways are going to disappear. And then you're going to be stuck with going to private cloud providers. So we use Ireland internally. They're absolutely fantastic. They offer a really great service. Obviously, you've got OVH out there, which is one of the biggest leaders in the world for IaaS as well. They do a very, very good job. But, is that what you want? Is that what because they're the options you're going to be limited to in the future. And a lot of customers now don't want to be limited. They want to move away from being locked in.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be agile.
Yes. Yeah. It's always the way.
Great. So, Dean, thank you very much for being a guest here on MSP Voice. And with that, I will say goodbye and we will talk again soon.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for the opportunity.